Joining me now is best-selling author Douglas Murray. His latest book on democracies and death cults, Israel and the Future of Civilization, will be released in April. You don't want to miss that. Douglas, let's start with the state of the Democrats in the US. While much of the media is preoccupied with 24/7 anti-Trump hysteria, the polling is showing Trump voters are pretty happy at the moment. But the Democrats are in peril. Their approval ratings are at record lows, 27%. It's a grim state of affairs, with Democrats facing historic discontent with their base. And as you can see in the graph, the net approval figure for the Republicans and Democrats paints an undeniable picture of a party in crisis. Douglas, is this just a case of bitter ideologues reacting to a big election loss and having a bit of a tantrum? Or is there a deeper issue here? Because we are seeing the most radical voices now seemingly taking over the party.
Yes, that's right. I mean, it's inevitable, isn't it, that after an election wipeout like the one that the Democrats suffered last November, it's inevitable that there is going to be a period of reflection, if not silence, from them as they try to work out what to do. That's the case with any party that suffered such a blistering defeat. The interesting thing with the Democrats, you say that they seem to be leaderless. That's really because they are. I mean, it can't be stressed in the American system. I mean, there is, Kamala Harris and what's his name? Walz. What happened to them? They drifted away after the election thumping that they got, and it's not like any of the Democratic Party wants to hear very much from either of them after having led them to that defeat. And then the rest of the party, you've got Minority Leader Senator Schumer, who has been castigated by his party for making a budget deal with the Republicans. Nancy Pelosi, the stripling of 84, has criticized Chuck Schumer. And Chuck Schumer has, in fact, cancelled the book tour he was going to go on in the coming days because of threats to him, not from Republicans, but from fellow Democrats. And so that's sort of the top of the party. You go to the layers underneath that, and unfortunately for the Democrats, you see just this case after case of somebody whose career is in cinders. Governor Gavin Newsom is trying podcasting, and that's because much of the district he was meant to keep an eye on burnt to the ground a few months ago, and he didn't do very much to stop that. And so it's hard to see how a little bit of podcasting could make up for that. And it's the same all the way down the party. There are people like Don Lemon, the former CNN anchor, who I mentioned in the New York Post, who claimed that the future of the party is the radical left wing of the party. But in fact, the only future of a party that those people are the future of is they are a future for the Republican Party. Because if the Democratic Party decides to take in the worst excesses of the Squad and others, then it's hard to see how the Republicans don't just continue winning for the foreseeable future.
Well, I did very much enjoy that piece in the New York Post. Very droll indeed. But it does beg the question, who is the next leader? You mentioned Gavin Newsom. He is trying to position himself as somewhat of a moderate, a centrist, a point of difference from the AOCs and Bernie Sanders. What about Tim Walz? Apparently he has presidential ambitions.
Well, where to even start with Tim Walz? He has cropped back up in recent days. First of all, to boast about his masculinity and to talk about what a threat he believes that he, the man known as Tampon Tim, how much of a threat he was to the Republicans because of his masculinity. Odd sort of thing to be boasting about and roaring about, but there it is. That's Tim Walz. And then he cropped back up in front of some sycophants on stage and talked about how he gets happy each day by he downloaded the share app that apparently you can have to monitor your shares. That's real man of the people stuff right there. And Tim Walz says he's added the Tesla shares to that and was celebrating Tesla shares going down. Tim Walz should look at where his shares politically are right now, and he'd see that they're close to bankruptcy. It's a really pathetic spectacle to see him doing that. The thing that they most need to do, the Democrats, is they need to actually come up with some policies and some ideas that differentiate them from the Republicans. They spent years doing Republicans are fascists. It's the end of the republic. Democracy dies in darkness. If you vote in Trump, he's Hitler, and it's all over. And it didn't work. It was clearly a total political play, but it also just didn't work. It turned out that the voters didn't believe them, and rightly so. But what do you do in the aftermath of that? They seem to be trying a little bit of stuff out, but they're going to have to put an awful lot more meat on the bone if they're going to look like a really reasonable, respectable party of opposition. And all parties need opposition, all governments need opposition. But apart from a bit of hollering about taxing the rich, there's very little there that the Democrats have to say.